Alright, guys, so here we are, Season 2, Episode 2. I'm outside in my little garden area. You can see my little doggy out there. So hopefully this isn't too distracting. If it is, please tell me. Again, I'm trying to find a spot to where I am able to film and it's a good environment. So Episode 2 is inner child healing and some prompts and some insight into my healing journey and what that's looked like for me and little steps that I've taken along the way. But as always, we will kick it off with a quote. So today's quote is, "A trigger is anything that sets you off emotionally and activates memories of your trauma. It's particular to you and your experience and what that has been. When we're triggered, we revert to the feeling and behaviors we had in our traumatized situations." And that's from a book on healing from trauma. So a lot of the times I'm talking to my husband or my kids, and I will tell them, hey, in this situation I was triggered, or I am triggered by certain people or certain things or certain scenarios. And a lot of the times they're like, what is triggers? Anything that will take you back to trauma or some kind of instance or moment or feeling where you felt less than, or you were struggling, or you felt like you were overstimulated, things like that. And so when you're doing shadow work, there are prompts to help you, and these are a couple of the ones that I've done on my end. And so I'll kind of go over them and provide insight into my situations on each one. So I'm being really vulnerable with you guys here. As always, that's my goal. I want to be open and transparent. So the first one is, what aspects of your life do you project onto others in a very unhealthy way? And for a long time, I feel like I was really projecting my anger from just overall, like the way I grew up, the household that I grew up in, the parental situation that I had. I had a lot of anger, and in my household growing up, that's really the kind of emotion that we showed most of the time. It was anger and frustration. And for the longest time, that was something that I felt like I was projecting onto my kids, and I didn't even notice it, right? So this is where we get into like the generational traumas and curses and things that we pass down from generation to generation. And it's not even necessarily something that we want to pass down. It's just the way it is. It's life. We learn things, we take on certain things, and then we show our kids, and it goes on and on. So it's not to say that my mom wanted me to be angry and frustrated all the time and take it out on my kids. It's just something that I learned, that she learned. And so that is something that I did project onto my family. I feel like now looking back at videos, I can see how angry I was and how frustrated. And I wasn't even angry or frustrated with them, right? I was angry and frustrated with life and my issues and my traumas, but I wasn't fixing or working towards fixing those issues. And so I was projecting them onto them. And that in turn, can lead my kids to do the same as adults. And I did that for so long. Again, I just really, truly deep into this healing journey just this year, 2025. And so I'm late in the game, right? But it was something that I feel like I did do. It was passed down to me. I did it to my kids, I did it to my husband, to my children, and I would just project so much anger, and so unknowingly. So it's not like I was doing it on purpose, and not that I could even really recognize it or see it myself. It wasn't until I looked back at videos to where I was like, okay, wow, like that's gotta stop. And it made me feel terrible on the inside, which I know that I am healing, or else I wouldn't be able to see that, right? I would see it as like, oh, well, somebody frustrated me, or this is what happened, and kind of make an excuse for myself versus actively learning to change that and heal it, and learning to be conscious of my actions, learning to be conscious of my temperament and how that affects my children and my family. And so again, healing little Val and really looking deeper into, why am I triggered? Why am I frustrated? Why am I yelling at everyone? The second one is, how do you honestly view yourself? And I will say that answer does change daily, right? it depends on the situation, depends on the mood, but I would say 90% of the time I do feel myself as somebody who needs grace, somebody that I need to have grace with myself, somebody who is learning, who's growing, who is maturing, who has been through so much but is trying not to be a victim in it all. And so at one point in time, I would say it was the other way around. 90% of myself was victim mentality, was somebody who was hurting so much and couldn't see past herself, even to her children and her husband. So it's something that's ever changing in the view of yourself. But I honestly can say that through work and through inner child healing, you are able to have grace with yourself and become somebody who's not a victim and see that you are an amazing person. Because when you're in that victim mentality, you're living the thoughts and the beliefs of the people that hurt you. You're living those, and those thoughts, those beliefs about you from the other people become your reality. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically what they told you you were, what they said you were, becomes who you allow yourself to be. And so that's not something that's a good feeling, right? When I, grew up, I was told, you're not going to be anything, you're worthless, you're going to be on government assistance, your kids are going to be dirty, you're going to be living off the government, all of that. And I refused to accept it. But if I allowed those people to get into my core, my belief systems, then possibly that might have been the case, right? I might have been living off of government assistance. I might have had, amounted to nothing. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to get so deep into my head that that's what I became. And the third question is another good one. What are things that trigger you, and why do they trigger you? I have a ton of triggers. For me, a big one is being disrespected, right? And I'll tell you why. Because when you are disrespectful to me, you tell me that I'm not enough without telling me. You're telling me that I'm not important, that I am less than. And so nobody wants to feel that way, right? So I would say a big one for me is respect, or being disrespected. If someone's disrespectful to me or towards somebody that I love, it is very, very hard for me to kind of remain in my center and in my peace and in my calm, because I'm still working on me, right? And so that's something that I haven't mastered yet. I haven't mastered the ability to be able to instantly just be like, it's okay, I'm going to shake it off. I'm still trying to master that skill, because it is a skill. And so I'll give you an example. Recently we had a situation with my mom where she was doing business with family, and it was a very bad situation. It was something that turned ugly pretty quickly, and I always tell people, my family is my number one. If you hurt my family, you're hurting me. They're an extension of me. And so I would see my mom, or I would talk to my mom, and she would be frustrated. She would be crying. I would ask her if she needed help, but she wanted me to talk to them. She was like, no, give me until Thursday. So, we went, it was Thursday. They were still giving her issues. She's crying. She's like, hey, this is what's going on. This is a bad situation. So finally I got on the phone, and right off the bat, the person that I was talking to immediately went into the disrespectful mode, which is a trigger. Old Val would have gone off and been crazy. And so I'm able to see growth. And again, I said last episode that so much has gone on to where I've been challenged, and in some things I've failed, in others I've been successful, and I've been able to see the growth. This was one moment where I was able to see growth, and I was able to be proud of myself. I was able to see growth in this instance, because I would have lost it on him. But I simply said, hey, you know what, there's no reason, there's no need for you to be rude. We're not going to do that. I'm talking to you, right? I'm just trying to have a conversation to get this issue resolved. So there's no need for that. So I was able to be bigger than the person that was trying to irritate me and get under my skin, right? And at the end of the day, if you think about it on a higher level, it's not even really his fault. He doesn't know how to communicate on a level where he is able to speak to somebody and have a conversation without necessarily needing to be rude or demeaning or degrading. So I am going to have grace for him for that. But in all reality, if you would have talked to old Val, would have talked to Val a year ago, it would have been a whole different situation. I've always said it before, I will go to war for my family. And now going to war for them means something a little bit different. It means being able to use my voice and not my anger. Being able to speak through truth versus seeing things through a red filter where I just want to go off on somebody. So yeah, I'm learning, I'm growing, and so you can grow through these triggers, and you can learn, and you can be okay. Another trigger of mine would be when somebody says that they're going to do something and then they don't. Again, it goes back to childhood traumas, and feeling like I'm a little girl being left waiting for her dad to show up. Hey, you promised you were going to pick me up. Hey, you promised you were going to call, and it doesn't happen. So when somebody says that they're going to do something and it doesn't go through, I get stuff happens. But if you do it to me over and over and over, eventually I have to learn that you're not good for me, and I'm not going to continue to trigger myself. I know that there's quite a bit of people who have been in those situations, in those scenarios, to where a parent or somebody you love tells you like, hey, I'm gonna go pick you up, I'm gonna go do this or that, and you're left hanging, and you feel like, hey, like, as a little kid, you can't understand that, right? You can't understand the level of mental awareness and clarity that you should have as an adult. So you see it as, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for him to remember to pick me up. I'm not good enough for him to think about. I'm not good enough for him to even give me a call. And I'm saying him because most of the time it was my dad. But whatever your situation was. And so it is something that does trigger me to this day. If somebody tells me that they're going to do something and then it falls through, like, I do get triggered, and it does take me back to being a child, and you're telling me that I'm not important for you, and you made a promise, or you said, hey, we're going to do this, and then you showed me that it wasn't something that was a priority. So you're telling me that I'm not a priority. And then last but not least, and we'll wrap up with this one, is how have I been distracting myself from what I need to do or work on within myself? That one is a good one, because I feel like a lot of the times for me, and particularly, it's easy for me to distract myself with my kids, my husband, the dog, with work, whatever I have going on, and say, you know what, I'm busy right now, and I can feel it in my soul. I can feel my soul, my heart, whatever it is, telling me like I need to meditate, I need to spend time for me and taking care of me. And I'm like, no, I don't have time, right? So I procrastinate that, and I put myself on the back burner, which every time that I do that, I don't show up for myself. And I already said that prior to this, people not showing up for me is a trigger. So by me not showing up for myself, that's a trigger. And telling little me that I'm not important, and saying, hey, little Val, like, I don't have time for you right now. I have this going on, that going on. And that's where I start to disconnect, right? And so recently I was speaking to my husband, and I was telling him the most important connection is the connection that we have with ourselves, that connection that we have with our inner child, because that inner child is the key to what we need as adults to be able to live our life, and to be able to be in a life to where we can reparent ourselves, and we can get past the trauma, and we can get past the fight or flight, in the sense of the traumas. We're always going to have flight or fight response, but getting past those traumas to where we're triggered instantly to get into fight or flight. But showing up for myself is something that it is hard at times, as a mom, as a wife, as somebody who is, doing business, working, whatever the case is. And so making myself a priority is something that I feel like I do struggle with. And so it's not even necessarily like making myself a priority in the sense of like, oh, I need to go shopping, or it's making time for me. And that's simple to just, hey, going to a park, sitting down, grounding, not even necessarily needing to go to a park, just meditating and spending time, and me feeling it in my soul that at that very moment, what I need is to be taken care of. And so I feel like it's easy to distract myself as a mom, as a wife, and put myself on the back burner, and that's something that I want to get better with and be able to down the road tell you guys, like, hey, you know what, I've been amazing with taking care of myself, and this is the keys that I'm using to do it. I'm not there at that moment. I'm still, I would say, 50-50. I have moments to where I can make myself a priority and do what I need, and other moments to where I am overwhelmed by what's going on. And so there's days where I find myself with a list of things that I need to do, and I'll start my day and I'm like super overwhelmed, super anxious, and then I will stop and I'm like, okay, this is just a day, and we're gonna breathe, we're gonna take a deep breath, and we are going to just take it task at a time, one thing at a time, one moment at a time, and we'll get through the day. And so when I look at the day and I try to take the whole bite and chew it all off at one time, it becomes overwhelming. But when I stop and I'm like, okay, just one thing at a time, breath by breath, task by task, I'm able to look back at the end of the day and really look at the situation and how I am able to handle it. And I've been proud of myself many, many times because of that. And I hope that this is something that helps you guys and gives you some insight into shadow work and inner child healing. And this is one of the boys that saved my life. This is my big baby, Debo. And little by little, you guys will meet my dogs. Like I said, I don't have a door, so. But this is my big papas. This is my big baby. He is a Cane Corso. But you've heard about him and his brothers saving me in my darkest times, and I'm grateful to God for them every single day. I hope that this episode was able to provide some insight and awareness into inner child healing and shadow work prompts of what you can do to work within yourself to begin the journey that you need to heal, because it's not something that's difficult in the sense of it doesn't take, a degree to do this. It doesn't take anything like that. It just takes honesty and strength, because you do have to go through uncomfortable memories. You do have to take yourself back to moments that hurt you so that you can tap into it and you can learn from it and reparent yourself from it. But definitely, I love shadow work. It's something that I am currently getting certified for so that I can help others and walk them through their journey and be a vessel to help them become the best version of themselves possible through inner child work and their higher power. Definitely, I want to get into more of this and really become a podcast that is able to not only help you feel like you're not alone, but a podcast that is able to provide education and tools and avenues to help you grow the best version of yourselves, because I know it's possible. And I'm 35 years old, and I am honestly able to say that I've never had as much peace in my life as I have now. I've never had as much gratitude and thankfulness to my greater higher power for the life that I get to live on a day-to-day basis in my life ever. And so I love you all so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for taking time to listen, tune in, watch. We are on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Podcastle, TikTok, all the avenues that you can think of. So if you can like, share, comment, subscribe, I would appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And I send you so much love, peace, joy, happiness. And until next time, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye, guys.